Here's what's cooking on an all-new Sports Stove podcast. We're looking at the Major League Baseball wild card race, the NFL week number 4 coming up, and, of course, college football as well. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up to me?
Oh, welcome in to an all-new Sports Stove podcast. We're having technical difficulties on my camera, but hey, you can still hear me, so we're going to keep going. Welcome into the show today. Thank you for being a part of the program, and we're looking forward to what is ahead, talking all things Major League Baseball, NFL, and college football. Joining me, as he normally does, is my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Boy, it was a great weekend for football. This weekend, we had our Mighty Blue Raiders with the upset down in Miami, and the Vols won and the Packers won. So it was a good weekend, and we'll see how it goes this week.
Yeah, it was a crazy weekend at the very least, right? I mean, lots of stuff going on, and interesting to see kind of how it all shook out at the end of the day. But I do want to start with college, not college, but Major League Baseball, as we're winding down to the end of the Major League Baseball season. And for the most part, we know which teams are in the American League. We're still looking on the National League to kind of see how it's going to shake out with the last spot. But generally speaking, things have shaken out. The Yankees finally clinched the division, so they're in. Cleveland clinched, and Houston has been clinched for quite some time. Wild card race in the American League. Like we said, it's pretty well set. Baltimore's hanging around. They're 3.5 out still. But Toronto, Tampa, and Seattle look to be the American League teams. So we won't talk too much about that since we already have. The Mets in Atlanta, though, are all tied up, Dad. How's that one going to shake out? I've kind of stuck with the Mets the whole time, thinking they're going to hold out there in the East. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think Atlanta very easily could win it and may come up. You know, they've played real well this year, and like I said, being the defending champions, it'll be interesting. They both are great teams and should really be factors in the playoffs. But it'll be real interesting to see how that comes down, because as far as the seeding, it'll probably make a difference.
Yeah, it definitely will. San Diego currently 2.5 up on Milwaukee. Philadelphia a 1.5 up on Milwaukee. So San Diego and Philly are the other teams currently in the Major League Baseball playoffs. But Milwaukee's still sniffing around. They got a tough one against St. Louis tonight, and then they will have a little easier schedule the rest of the way, but so does Philadelphia. So I'll ask again. I know I've asked it before, but where are we going to be with these last spots? Is it San Diego, Philadelphia, or is it one of those teams in Milwaukee?
Well, I think it'll be San Diego and Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia will hold on. Again, it's surprising because, back a lot earlier, it looked like the Brewers would win that division. But San Diego looks like they've, got things kind of in hand. But again, there's enough time left that, those three could all switch positions very easily.
I think San Diego is going to be the odd man out. I think Philly and Milwaukee make it. San Diego's got a little tougher schedule. Not horribly tough. They got the Dodgers. They've got the White Sox and the Giants. And I can see the Giants wanting to play spoiler here. So I'm going to say that San Diego is going to be the one that falls out. Milwaukee finds a way in, as they've got an easier schedule down the close than San Diego does. I think Philadelphia will make it as well, although they've lost 3 straight now and 3 of their last 7. It wouldn't be completely surprising if they fall out of this either here at the final stretch of the whole thing. I think it's going to be a fun playoffs no matter who makes it in. I love the Mets, the Braves, and the Dodgers. I think are all really good options coming out of the National League. And then I think that you've got, of course, Houston. I think Houston's the front runner. I think Houston comes out of the American League. Is anybody going to challenge Houston this year?
It looks like Houston would be the team. Of course, the Yankees have been good, And I think, whoever, if they end up getting in it, as far as Tampa or Toronto could get hot and make a run at it. But Houston seems to look like they would have it under control. Of course, the Yankees at certain times have, played tremendous, and then other times have struggled. So, if Houston comes ready to play, then they probably should be the team out of the American League.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I just think they're tough, but I think Toronto could surprise people and really challenge the Guardians actually have a decent pitching staff. It kind of gets forgotten about because that Central Division really hasn't been that great. But the Guardians pitching staff has been pretty decent so far this year, and that's something that can carry you in the playoffs. Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill, and Plesac and Savali are all decent options at this point, especially talking about a 5-man rotation in the playoffs. And then Clase, he's been phenomenal as a closer this year, as expected as well. So they're a team to watch out for. I'd still go Houston in the AL. I think the NL is a little bit more open, though. So we'll see kind of how that one shakes out. Your Giants technically still in the hunt, Dad. 7.5 back. I think one more loss eliminates them. Depending on, I guess, how the other teams win or lose. But they're currently 7.5 back from Philadelphia, not been officially dismissed from the playoffs, same as the White Sox and the Twins in the American League as well, but not expecting a whole lot to happen from those teams here. All right, let's move on to the NFL and another exciting week under the belt of the NFL. And, Dad, I got to ask you about a couple of these teams because I was surprised by some of them. Let's start with the Raiders. The Raiders are 0-3, and they made some moves in the offseason. They get a new coach. They get some new defensive players, some new offensive players, and they've been in games but unable to win games to this point. And the question kind of is where are they? Are they on the outs completely? Can they get it turned around in time to make a run here this season?
Well, with their division, I don't know. They don't want to get down too much, and it depends on how the other teams, of course, in the AFC does. I think everybody is surprised because people thought the Raiders would be better. Our preseason predictions, you've been right on a couple of them, but so far I've been pretty much right about Josh McDaniels. I just didn't feel like he was the right coach for them. And so far, they have struggled. And we'll see. There could be time to turn it around. On the other hand, it could get ugly. They lose, 2 out of the next 3 or whatever. If they get out of the playoff hunt early, I think, with making the acquisitions they did with Devontae Adams and everything there, I mean, they should be doing better. And again, their division right now, Denver's struggling a little bit. Nobody really knows where they're at. Kansas City, of course, has looked good. Everybody, including me, thinks the Chargers are going to be good, but they stumbled. So, there'd be a chance they're going to have to win some division games. So we'll see.
Well, and they're going to have the chance to win some division games, obviously, as the season goes on as well. But a crazy start to the year for them. Again, they've been right there. They've been close. The question is can they get over the hump and get their first win? We'll talk about that when we get to our pick sixes here in a little bit. How about a surprise team the other direction, the Jacksonville Jaguars? Both of us thought that they could be an improved team this year. And if I remember right, I didn't go back and listen, but if I remember right, we were thinking like 6 to 7 wins. I may have even said 8 wins. But nonetheless, they've started off really well. They look good. Young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, 2 good running backs. The receivers have played well. The defense has probably been the most surprising thing so far with them as well. Of course, a new head coach there in Doug Peterson. Jacksonville, they look like a legitimate threat for the division.
They definitely do in that division. Like you said, they have some talent, and I think the difference there is the coach. I think they hired the right coach. I think, he obviously has the team behind him very quickly. He's, talented. He'll definitely help Trevor Lawrence. And Jacksonville, like I said, they're in the right division. And that would be something if they could win the division. But right now they're playing very well. From what I understand, their defense is doing very well. A couple key defensive players. And, if they can do that, they're definitely going to be improved, no doubt about it. I don't know that we thought they'd be a playoff team, but right now we're saying, wow, they could win the division. So again, I like Peterson. I'm happy that Jacksonville's doing well, and again, we'll see here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see what they can be here in the next couple of weeks for sure. How about the Miami Dolphins, undefeated, winning the division right now? Again, I'll give my thoughts in a second. I want to hear your thoughts first, though, on the Miami Dolphins, what you're thinking about them.
Well, again, I think, I didn't know that much about their coach or didn't know how well that would go. But again, obviously he has the players behind him. They have talent. And, with the wide receiver talent they have, if Tua can stay healthy, they're going to be good. They brought in a lot of players. They've got a good defense. I wouldn't think they're the ones that are going to win the division, but boy, they've got off to the start right now. And I think they're definitely going to be a team, to be reckoned with all season in the AFC.
Well, why wouldn't they be a team that could win the division? Like, what is it that says no, they can't be that?
Well, we've talked about Buffalo. Buffalo has the talent, and I would think they'd be the ones that would win, but Miami, very, very easily could. So,
yeah, sorry, I'm messing with my camera right now.
Trying to make things work. All right, let's try this. You hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah, it's a little weak, but yeah.
Okay. So with this, I got lots of technical difficulties. Apparently there's blackouts in Brazil, but that shouldn't affect what we're doing here. But anyways, Miami's a team. They're an interesting team, right? Because they've got great offense, but I don't trust their quarterback. I don't think the quarterback is what's doing it for them. I think that you've got great receivers. They did a great job of building the team around him, but at the end of the day, he's just throwing the ball up there and they're running underneath it. So I still don't trust Tua. But having said that, I'm still in on the Dolphins. I like what they've got for this year.
Yeah, I think that I think they're going to do well. Again, I'm having a little trouble hearing you here. Your volume's not real good.
All right. Hopefully we can get it working better. You hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. How about the New York Jets? They're getting their quarterback back. They survived with Joe Flacco, but now they get their quarterback back in Zach Wilson. Do you think, because I'm thinking fantasy football-wise, I've held on to my Jets, hoping that when Zach Wilson returns, they get a little bit of value back. How are you going to feel about Zach Wilson's return to the Jets?
Well, it should be a real spark, and hopefully he will play well. Flacco in some ways filled in fine, but I think the Jets, again, we're getting a win now. I think, they can have a decent year again with Miami being good, and in Buffalo, their division, it may be a little tough, but New England's struggling. So I would think the Jets, hopefully Wilson will do well and be a little bit of a spark for them there. So I look for the Jets to be improved.
Yeah, I don't know how much they'll be improved in week one, right? With Zach Wilson getting his first playing time. But I think there's potential for them to definitely move along the right direction and have some positive outcomes from it long term. I think fantasy-wise, guys like Elijah Moore are going to do a lot better with Zach Wilson than they did under Joe Flacco. And we'll see about the running backs, kind of what happens with them as well from there. Any other teams that are standing out to you, surprising you, or finally earning your confidence? Maybe teams you didn't believe in before, but you believe in now.
Well, I think, Indiana showed, the Colts showed that they can do better. So I think they have, I think they have potential there without a doubt. Philadelphia continues to be strong, and so we'll see how that goes. Dallas has done real well with the backup quarterback, so we'll see, how that goes too. That's kind of surprising, from there. So we will see. Atlanta has played better than expected, and some different ones there. New Orleans has struggled, so we'll see as it goes along. The AFC North, it's been very, I don't think it's been real settled yet at this point, even though I think Cincinnati will rise to the top, but Baltimore has struggled maybe a little more than we thought. So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. Most of these teams, I'm kind of just now I feel like I know enough about most of them. Like I said, I'm in on Miami. I think Buffalo's going to have a great week this week. I think the Jets are what they're going to be. I think they're going to be that 7-win team kind of area again this year. The Patriots look like they're down to earth now after years of success and everybody claiming Belichick was the amazing person that he was. And now that we've seen him without Tom Brady, we're starting to realize I don't think he's got as much in him as maybe we thought he did. The North, you're right. AFC North is interesting. I don't think Pittsburgh's any good, but I think Cincinnati and Baltimore are, and Cleveland has hung around there with the backup quarterback as well, Jacoby Brissett. So good things there. The South, I don't know anything about the South. You said we know the Colts can do better. Well, okay, they did win an important game, but I don't know what the Colts are. I don't know what they're going to be moving forward. Jacksonville, I love that story. I love them doing well. I'd love for them to take the South, but I don't know that they'll do that either. AFC West, what's going on with Denver? Denver can't score any points. Russell Wilson looks like a third-round pick for the first time in his career. So maybe they need to go out and sign Matt Flynn. Maybe then Russell Wilson will step up and play some good football again. Kansas City looked great the first 2 weeks. Lost to a Colts team that has looked miserable so far this season. Vegas 0-3. Chargers are injured. They're banged up. Joey Bosa on the IR. Herbert hurt ribs. So there's a lot going on there. You mentioned the NFC East. The Eagles, I mean, my goodness. They look strong right now. The Cowboys, who knows? Ideally, Dak's back maybe in a week. So what happens there? New York, everybody's still down on New York. This week, everybody's like, yep, New York is who we thought they were. I'm still in on New York. How do you feel about the Giants?
I definitely I think there's a chance that they're better than what we thought. Again, I think, I don't think their quarterback is the answer, and that may end up being the problem as the year goes on. But definitely, again, they're in a division where they should be competitive. And again, I think they do have a good coach, and the coach has, got everybody rallied, believing in the system. And so I'll stay in with the Giants for a little longer and see how that goes.
Let's talk about Tampa too. Green Bay beats them barely, 14-12. Is Tom Brady done?
Tom Brady's still going to have a good year this year, I think. It's going to depend on he had a lot of people hurt. He gets his wide receivers back. Sure. I don't think maybe they'll be in the NFC Championship game, but again, they should be able to win that division. Tom Brady is still a lot, he's still good. He's smart. He does not have the team around him that he's had in the last couple of years. And there could be a chance the frustration will set in. If it gets, and then he starts getting frustrated. He starts getting irritable. Then is everybody gonna, are they going to shape up and rally around him? Do they have the ability to do that? That's going to be, and the coach is going to have a job at keeping everything under control there, even though I like their coach.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you said it. I mean, who's going to beat him in the division? You've got Jameis, who's banged up. No matter what you think about Jameis, he is injured. That doesn't help things. Atlanta, they've shown signs that they're going to be a competitive team, but they've also shown signs that they're going to be a top 3 pick this year. And then Carolina has not shown any kind of consistency as well. that we expect from there. In the NFC West, there's a lot of people now all in on the 49ers. I think the Rams are still the front runner to win this division, and Arizona might be the second place team to win this division. I don't know. How do you sit on the NFC West?
Yes, I think the Rams, will rise to the top there, and will be the ones in that division. And we'll see the Cardinals. It looks like they have potential. Of course, be a few weeks and they'll get Hopkins back, and that could help and make a difference. But you may be right; they may not have the coach, that they need there that can turn the corner in. And a lot of that's going to depend on the rest of the NFC. If a couple teams are strong in the North, a couple teams are strong in the East, then all of a sudden, it won't be easy to necessarily to get in the playoffs. And that could be tough on the Cardinals, could be tough on the 49ers.
Very true. All right, so we got an interesting week of games lined up this week. We've been doing our pick sixes. Right now, I am 8-10. Dad is 10-8. We tied this past week as well. So we've got a game in London. Our first London game of the season is Minnesota and New Orleans. That game will kick off 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And you can still get your ticket for $120 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. Dad, I have not gotten my tickets for London for the Packer game yet. Are we not going to that game?
Well, I would think that's going to work out, but I'm not sure yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, Facebook said it was Suns Day yesterday or today or sometime. I don't even know what Suns Day is, but I expected Packer tickets. They didn't come. Yeah. Let's go. Our pick sixes this year. We're picking the primetime games: Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night, and then we get to pick 3 just games of our choice to round out our 6 picks each week. We are picking against the spread. I want to clarify that neither me or Dad are gamblers. We do not gamble, but we use the spread as a fun way just to have an extra fun game to play. So we're picking 6 games this week. And let's start off, Dad, with the Thursday night game. It's Miami at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the 3.5-point favorites at home against the 3-0 Miami Dolphins. So which way did you decide to go with this one?
I'll take Cincinnati in the 3.5 because again they're at home, and I think Cincinnati's going to have a good team, and I think this is a game where they can show that. So it's an interesting game to look at to pick with 3.5, but I'll take Cincinnati to cover.
I took Cincinnati also, Dad. I'm not going to be able to catch you if you're going to keep doing that, but I too picked Cincinnati. I think Minnesota comes back to earth a little bit, Miami comes back to earth a little bit this week, and I think the Bengals are on that upward trajectory as well. So with them being at home, I decided to go Cincinnati minus 3.5 also. Sunday night's game is Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, Tampa Bay and Kansas City. It's Kansas City at Tampa Bay, but it might be in Minnesota as the hurricane is coming in. And if they cannot play in Tampa, they're going to play it at Minnesota since Minnesota is out of town in London this week. When we looked at ours, it was 2.5-point spread. Kansas City, the favorite in this game. Which way do you go on this one?
I'll take Kansas City on this one. Again, they're favored, and even though it's at Tampa, I'll go with Patrick Mahomes. I think Kansas City, has played better, and again, it was a close one to call, but I'll go with Kansas City with 2.5.
I'm going to go the other way. Tampa Bay plus 2.5. They get Mike Evans back from suspension. Their defense is really good, and I feel like Kansas City. You saw Patrick Mahomes arguing with Eric Bieniemy about just taking the knee at the end of the half, and there's some turmoil there as well. I think Kansas City is a team that could fall apart very quickly. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay in this one. I think they recover from their pretty much no offensive output against Green Bay and come out and win this game, but I'll take them at plus 2.5. And then our Monday night game is the Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers, a 2.5-point favorite in this game. The game after Jimmy Garoppolo steps out of bounds in the end zone. Fortunately for him, because he threw a pick six had he not stepped out of bounds. Where do you go with this one?
I'll go with the Rams again. I think they're going to be the better team. Now it is at San Francisco, but again, with 2.5, they can win it by a field goal. So I'll go with the Rams as the underdog on this one, and hopefully Garoppolo can stay in bounds.
Yeah, well, hopefully he doesn't. I'm going the Rams also, plus 2.5 on this one, and so I'm going to go with the Rams to win this game. And of course, cover in that happenstance, they can lose by 2 points and still get the victory here. So we're going to go with both of us going with the Rams and Cincinnati, but we'll split Tampa Bay and Kansas City. That brings us to our final 3 picks. Who's your the first game that you chose randomly?
I will take the Giants over the Bears. They're favored by 3.5. And again, it's at home for the Giants. I think they'll rebound from their loss. And again, I don't have a lot of confidence in the Bears. So I'll go with the Giants to cover 3.5.
I'm going to go with the Vegas Raiders, Dad. They get their first win of the season against Denver, who's really struggled so far this year as well. Vegas is at home, I believe. So that gives me another reason to like them. You're checking to make sure I'm right on that. Yes, they're at home and 2.5 point favorites. That's not a massive spread. So I picked Vegas over Denver to -2.5. Who's your 5th game?
I will stay in the Big Apple with the Jets. The Jets are an underdog to the Steelers, and the Steelers are at home 3.5 points. But I'll take the Jets to be definitely within the 3.5 points, and I think they can win this one.
I was too afraid of the first game with the quarterback back, so I stayed away from that one. I looked at that one too. My first thought was Jets as well, but I was like, man, Zach Wilson's first game back, it might be a little rough, and so that one scared me off a little bit. I'm going to put my fake money where my mouth is. I'm going to pick Jacksonville, Dad. They're 6.5 point underdogs to Philadelphia. On the road at Philadelphia as well. I just love what Jacksonville's doing. The return of Doug Peterson there as well. And I think they can keep it close. Not sure if they'll win, but I think that they can cover that. So I went with Jacksonville as my 5th game this week. Who's your 6th game?
I'll take a big division game, and I'm going to pick the Colts over the Titans. 2.5. I think they can cover that. Again, it's at the Colts, and I think chance for them to rebound here. So I'll take them over the Titans to cover 2.5.
And Colts are the favorite, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I'm not touching the Colts. You can't get me to touch the Colts for at least the next 3 weeks. I got to figure out what they are first. Are they what they were last week against Kansas City? Or are they what they were against Houston? I mean, I need to know a lot more about them before I pick them for anything, either against them or for them. I'm steering clear of Colts games for quite some time. My last game is Buffalo over Baltimore. Buffalo's 3.5 point favorites on the road at Baltimore, but I think Josh Allen comes out and has a massive game this week. I think the Bills get back on track. I think Buffalo can keep it close, so that 3.5 is a little scary, but I think ultimately Buffalo wins this game by 10 at least. So I'll go with Buffalo for my pick. So to round us out again, Dad went with Cincinnati -3.5, Kansas City -2.5, Los Angeles Rams +2.5, the Giants at -3.5, the Jets at +3.5, and the Colts at -2.5. I go with Cincinnati. Tampa, it's +2.5. The Rams, Vegas at -2.5. Jacksonville at +6.5. And Buffalo at -3.5 there. So, Dad, right now you're holding a 2-game lead on me. Basically, you got me in week 2 is where you kind of got a little bit of a lead, but we kind of evened out last week again. So we'll kind of see where that continues to go through. Let's talk about some of these other games, though, in the NFL this week. Minnesota and New Orleans in London. Again, New Orleans is kind of beat up, so I think Minnesota wins this game. But anytime you go to London, you never know what's going to happen. So I stayed away from that, too. I still think Minnesota's a really good team. And I know you've kind of put them in that Dallas category where you're afraid to say anything nice about them. But I think New Orleans isn't great. They're not bad. They're not great either. And they've been kind of banged up also. I think Minnesota wins, but again, in London, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Right. Yeah, you never know. But yeah, I would agree. I think Minnesota will win this one. They definitely should. And but like you said, time change, all that's everything that goes into going over there to play. We'll see. But I would think Minnesota would win it.
Cleveland at Atlanta. I can't pick Jacoby Brissett either. That one scares me. In Atlanta, they've been competitive, not racked up the wins necessarily, but an interesting game nonetheless. I think a pretty evenly matched game. Amari Cooper helped me out greatly in fantasy last week with the Cleveland Browns. But which way you go in Cleveland, Atlanta? What do you think about this game?
That'll be an interesting game. Again, I think Cleveland has done better. Of course, their big defensive player could be out for this
Myles
game.
Garrett. Yeah.
And that's going to make a big difference. So, I don't think Atlanta is going to win the division, but they've definitely played better. Again, I think their coach has it going. Can't say I have a lot of trust in Mariota, but Patterson has had a good season so far. So I think Atlanta could win this one. Again, a lot of Browns fans around where I live here, so I like to see them do well, but we'll see.
How many more games does Marcus Mariota start?
I think he'll keep starting for a while, I believe.
You don't think they'll put the rookie in?
I don't know that they will right away. I think question on that one is how long will Tannehill be starting?
Well, yeah, we got to get you some WD-40. That's another story. We'll get to them in a second. Tennessee. Well, you already called that game, so we can talk about it. But I think Mariota, he's got another 4 or 5 games to win at least half of them before he gets pulled out. But at that point, once the season's out of hand, once they know that they're not going to go anywhere, I think they make the switch to Desmond Ridder. So far, Mariota, he's throwing 63% completion, 640 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He's also added 92 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns there. You said Cordell Patterson's been great. Drake London, the rookie, has been really good as well. 214 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. So there's some positive things in Atlanta, but that game, I'd have a hard time picking that one for sure. Let's talk about Tannehill. How much longer is Tannehill going to play? I mean, I think Tannehill finishes the season. I don't see them benching Tannehill this year. That one would surprise me unless it just goes completely under. But in that division, you're going to be in that division the whole year, even if you're bad. So I don't see him pulling out Ryan Tannehill in that one. Washington at Dallas, division game. Could be Cooper Rush's last game if Dak Allen comes back the following week. Washington, I mean, they get behind and then they score a bunch of points. It's always too little too late for them, it seems like, this year. Again, I picked against Dallas last week. I didn't think they could pull it off with Cooper Rush 2 weeks in a row. They did. So what do we expect this week, Washington coming to town?
Well, it's always, interesting game when you have a division game. Of course, this is a rivalry. A lot of people would say they have rivalries with the Cowboys, but probably Washington as much as anybody. And we'll see. Carson Wentz had a good start, didn't do as well. Their defense hasn't played like, we think they could. But this would be a chance for them to get back on track. So we will see. Cooper Rush has managed the game. I've heard some comments that they've made good play calls as far as they're running the ball, not letting him get in trouble. And again, Washington can have an awful good defense, so we'll see.
Tony Pollard is picking up carries, almost matching Ezekiel Elliott 50-50 in the last game. He's only 20 yards behind Elliott, 13 carries behind Elliott, both of them with 1 touchdown. Is Tony Pollard the number 1 running back? Should he be the number 1 running back in Dallas?
again, they're paying Ezekiel Elliott a lot of money, which was probably a mistake. But Elliott's a good running back. But yeah, I think Pollard could take over. Dallas is going to need to win games, and whatever it's going to take for them to win games is ultimately what they're going to do. And so, if Pollard's the best answer to win games, then you'll have Zeke Elliott taking a little bit of a second seat.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy's coaching for his job with Sean Payton sitting out there waiting for it. So see how that one shakes out. Seattle at Detroit. Detroit's been playing some really good football, Dad. Seattle, not so much. I think Detroit wins this one, especially with it being at home. What do you think about that game, Seattle at Detroit?
Detroit has played better. They shouldn't have lost to one last week. Now, they have an injury with wide receiver St. Brown. Not sure if he will play this week, and that could be a little bit of a difference. Our old Packer Jamal Williams having a good year there. And, again, I think the coach has, the team still rallying with him. They're going to need to win a couple of these games instead of losing close ones. So, we'll see how you would think they beat Seattle, but, Seattle's had a couple of games they've stayed in, so we'll see.
DeAndre Swift is injured as well. He's out. Will miss the game this week. So that puts Jamal Williams as the number one back in there. St. Brown, he's got an ankle injury, did not practice on Wednesday. Still, I think, potential. I'm pretty sure he'll probably still play on Sunday. But I think losing St. Brown would be bigger than losing DeAndre Swift, which is crazy to think about. But that's the way St. Brown has been so far this season. Let's see here. You called the Giants over the Bears, so we won't talk about that one anymore. And that brings us to the Los Angeles Chargers at Houston. Chargers are banged up. Houston has, again, they've played better than most people thought they would play. How do you feel about the Chargers traveling to Houston?
Well, the Chargers are banged up, but again, they need to get the ship righted and keep going. But the way the Texans have played, they're going to win one or two here down the line somewhere. So, they're definitely a scrappy team. They're not a team that you go in and you're just going to roll over them. So, Chargers will have to be ready to play. And they're in kind of a tough spot because when you're banged up, you want to get healthy for later on, but they need to win games too, losing that one last week.
Yeah, I think Chargers win that one as well. Texans going to be battling for that number one pick this year, which they could probably trade out and get some good pieces for if they choose to do so, or they can secure another quarterback that they think is the future. Maybe they trade Davis Mills and get something out of him and draft a new quarterback. Who knows? We'll talk about that as we get into next season. Arizona at Carolina. I think Arizona wins this one. Carolina, they've kind of stayed in games too, but I just think Arizona is the better team.
Well, Arizona should, again, but Arizona needs to win it if they're going to, stay in the hunt in the division and everything there. So, and like you said, Carolina has not been consistent.
Yeah, that's new coach is coming, and maybe Baker works out in Carolina long term. But I think Matt Rule, his time is almost expired in Carolina. New England at Green Bay. Neither of us picked the Packers this week. Big favorites, 10.5, I think, was the number on our what we're using. New England's got an injured quarterback, so we're probably looking at a backup quarterback. And I think Green Bay takes this one. The defense is playing well. It's at home. Again, New England's banged up, so I think the Packers win this one. They might win this one pretty convincingly.
Yes, they could. I didn't pick it just because of the big spread, but I think they could easily win by that. Again, I think the offense is, again, they've had, of course, the people out with Sammy Watkins being gone now. But again, Romeo Doubs looked good. I think they'll get maybe Christian Watson back this week. The offense is clicking better. Bakhtiari is back. He was back, alternated possessions alternated series last game. I look for him maybe to play more. And again, New England's a little banged up. So I would think Green Bay should have a big game being at home and everything there. So I think Green Bay will do well, and I think they'll continue continue to look better on offense. The defense, again, really looked good, and the special teams was very positive, where in the last several years it's always been a big negative. So it looks like maybe they're getting the ship righted there too. So
hopefully so. Hopefully so. All right, let's get into college football, Dad, to close out our episode today. Let's start with our playoff predictions. We've talked about this before. I'm curious if after now a couple of weeks of watching teams play, have you changed your predictions for the Final Four, or are you still confident with what you had?
No, I would change again. I think with Oklahoma losing, it'd be hard to keep them in. As I looked at this, it's a little bit tricky. I think in Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State have all proved, they're at the top. I think the next team, it looks like right now they have the best chance. The one you've talked about is USC. I think Southern Cal, because again, I think they would have a chance to do well out there, in the conference, and do well there. A couple more good teams in the Big Ten, Penn State and Michigan. The problem is, they're all going to play each other, and they're
Right.
all in the same division with Ohio State. So I think it might be hard for the Big Ten to get two teams in, even though I think two of those three might be good enough because of the playoff. Now, if somebody beat Ohio State, got in the playoffs, then maybe, they'd still keep Ohio State in from there. But to me, I would pick USC right now. But Penn State and Michigan, both have done well. I think Penn State could be a surprise.
Well, remember, divisions don't matter in the Big Ten. So Penn State or Michigan could get a second shot at Ohio State in the Big Ten championship this year.
Well, I looked that up, and I think there is still a Big Ten championship game.
There's still a championship game. It's just the divisions don't matter.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think the Big Ten could have potential maybe to get two teams in, which would be kind of crazy with the SEC having two and the Big Ten having two, but that could happen.
Yeah, but that'd be the deal where, let's say Michigan loses to Ohio State, but then they win the rest of their games. They're probably playing Ohio State in the Big Ten championship again for a rematch, which would be quite fun. Of course, that one would be played in Indianapolis in a neutral site. So see how that one shakes out. Same thing with Penn State. If they lose to Ohio State, or if Ohio State loses to one of these teams, they might face them again in the Big Ten championship. The question is you wouldn't have two SEC teams and two Big Ten teams. So somebody's going to miss out. Who? That is the question, of course, to ask. I'm sticking with my guys, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and USC. I don't think Clemson, they're currently ranked number 5. They just don't look like they're a national championship team or even a playoff team at this point. So I don't think that's going to happen. Are there any teams outside of the top 10 that you look at? Penn State's technically outside of the top 10. But you got Ole Miss is 4-0, Washington's 4-0, Minnesota and Florida State all 4-0. Do you see any of those teams jumping up from outside the top 10? NC State's in the top 10. Sorry. Do you see any of those teams jumping up and possibly making a playoff run?
Well, it's hard to say right now because as you look at the games this week, this is going to be the weekend when teams you're going to find out who's going to stay in it for another week or two and who's going to go out, because you got teams, and I know we're going to talk about these games here in a little bit, so I won't right now. But if a surprise team's going to come in, then they're going to need to win this week and keep going. And you have a lot of these teams playing each other. So it'll take a little more shape after this week.
Well, let's talk about them. Kentucky and Ole Miss, undefeated teams. Ole Miss is the favorite in this game, even though Kentucky's ranked number 7 overall. I don't trust either of these teams. I don't trust Ole Miss. I don't trust Kentucky. I don't even know where to go with this game, Dad. I'm sitting here going, okay, am I being too mean to Kentucky? Because I tend to lean that direction. Ole Miss is a 7-point favorite at home. I don't know what to do with them. Do you have an idea for Ole Miss and Kentucky?
Well, like I said, this is going to be a classic game of who's going to stay in it. Whoever wins this game will still then be undefeated, and they'll still be looking at, looking at staying in the hunt, even though it'll be tough in the SEC. It's interesting to me that Ole Miss is favored that much. Of course, they are at home. So I don't know. I haven't paid that much attention to Ole Miss. I know Kentucky has played well and has scored well. So this will be an interesting game, but I think with Ole Miss being favored, probably tells you something. But whoever loses this one, when you look at the other teams in the conference, with Tennessee doing well, Arkansas being good, to lose this one, I don't think then you're going to have a shot in the conference or staying in the hunt near the playoff time, which they may not anyhow with Georgia and Alabama. So,
yeah, very true. Let's stay in the SEC. Alabama and Arkansas. I'm basically all in on Alabama at this point. They've given me no reason to think otherwise. They're 17-point favorite, but they are on the road, and Arkansas has proven that they are a better team than they have been in the past. They've been better the last year or two. Can Arkansas keep it close to have a shot at the end of this game?
Well, I would love to see Arkansas with the upset here. They are at home, and of course, they play well at home and have a rabid fan base. But again, Alabama's awfully good, so I think we'll see. Of course, Alabama, had a very close game with Texas, and this could be a test for them. But I would think they would win it.
Or that Texas game woke them up. And they'll push through the rest of the season with no problem, possibly. Let's shift gears to different conferences. Texas Tech coming off a big win against Texas, playing against Kansas State this week as well. I'm trying to find where I had that game up, and then I lost it. But that should be a fun game either way, and a good game as well. Kansas State ranked 25th. Both teams are 3-1. Kansas State is a 8-point favorite in this game. This is kind of my upset pick of the week. I think Texas Tech might be able to come in and surprise Kansas State. Any thoughts on that game?
Kansas State, like I said, should win, but Texas Tech has been a surprise all the way along this year. So that could be, like you said, a fun game to watch.
Wake Forest and Florida State. Florida State, this game might get moved because of the hurricane. They're right there, ranked 22, Wake Forest, 23, Florida State. Florida State's undefeated, 7-point favorite. There's this little hint of Florida State's back. I'm not sure if they're back or not. Do you think Wake Forest wins this game, or do you think Florida State continues to roll?
I think Florida State's improved, but I think Wake Forest will win this game. I think Wake Forest has a really good team, and, this will be a game they need to win. Again, Florida State obviously has already improved with what they've played this season, but I would think Wake Forest will win.
Yeah, I picked Wake Forest. I'm in a college pool, and I picked Wake Forest to win. I'm kind of cheering for Florida State, but I don't know. I just doubt them, I guess, at being 4-0. I don't think they're going to continue. And then NC State and Clemson. Clemson has won, but it hasn't been pretty really yet. NC State's a really good team. They're in the top 10. They're ranked number 10 also. So you got a 2 top 10 teams going after it, and this might be the ACC right here.
Yeah, it may very well be. I think if Clemson is going to be for real and battle to get in the playoffs, and they, not only they need to win this game, but they need to play well and be convincing, and NC State could very well win it, and that would put them, in another course for sure.
You're wearing your Blue Raiders shirt. They beat Miami convincingly. We'll use that word a couple times tonight. They looked the part, did a good job. Of course, a couple years ago, they upset Michigan State in the basketball tournament. Now a win against the top 25 team against Miami. They sure were excited about it down there in Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and a fun game. Anything this week you're looking for outside of the games we already talked about?
No, and again, congratulations to Coach Stockstill and MTSU there. They're going to have a tough time in the conference. They play a really good team this week in University of Texas, San Antonio. And a lot of the teams in the Conference USA are leaving next year, but they're still in this year, and there's some really good teams. So if they can play like they did against Miami, they could really do well in the conference. But I know they're going to have to be ready to play. But this is a home game, a blackout game. We've been to one of those before, and I think they'll be a lot of fun there. You did have down on the list Oklahoma State and Baylor. Yeah. And I think that could be very good. Baylor it looks like they've done better, but this could be, Oklahoma State's a team that could win this.
Yeah, I picked Oklahoma State in that game. In the college pool I'm in, Baylor's a 2-point favorite. Oklahoma State is the higher ranked team, and they had a really good year last year too. They're a legit team. Baylor, to me, has disappointed this season, even though they're 3-1. So I picked Oklahoma State to win that game. I think they win that game, but it should be a good one. What about Iowa and Michigan? People seem to think Iowa has a shot. Michigan's an 11-point favorite on the road. I just don't think I don't think they're there. I don't think they're on that level this year to where Michigan is. Michigan's looked really, really solid. I'd be shocked if Iowa won this game.
Well, this is the kind of game, though, that Michigan's had trouble with, and Iowa has upset people there at home before. So it doesn't look like Iowa has the team to play with them right now, even though Michigan did have a little bit of a close game last week. I believe it was with Maryland. So we'll see. Iowa will be a tough place. Be a good test for sure.
Yeah, Maryland played them, but at the end of the day, Michigan pulled away. I mean, there was still no question at the end of the game. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. Looking forward to another college weekend. I'll be at Eastern Kentucky's game this week. They're playing Southern Utah. First time ever to match up against any team from Utah, let alone Southern Utah, coming off a tough loss, EKU is. So I'll be covering that game and covering that on my Twitter page at Sports Stove. And we're writing up an article afterwards as well. If you're in Richmond, Kentucky, you've got a live show at noon at Mad Mushroom Pizza in Richmond, Kentucky. Welcome to come and be a part of the show as well. All right, another weekend of football is ahead of us. Baseball playoffs are just around the corner, and October is sneaking up on us ever so quickly as well. Just a couple days away. Dad, any closing remarks?
Nope. Again, it should be the NFL's really been crazy. So we'll see what happens this week. It has potential to continue to be that way. And again, a great time in sports coming up on the baseball playoffs, like you said. The NBA season is not far away. NHL is not far away. So a lot of sports going on here soon.
Definitely. I want to apologize for our earlier technical difficulties. Thank you for sticking with us through the episode. Follow on Instagram and Twitter at Sports Stove. And we'll be back next week with another episode. And feel free to submit any picks. If you'd like to pick games for this Pick 6, just throw those out there in the comment sections as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's edition of the Sports Stove podcast. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.